Dirt is killing your diesel engine. I see it all the time in teardowns. But the dirt I'm talking about is inside the fuel, not on the pump handle. Clean-looking diesel can be deadly. I'm Morgan Lane, and you're watching Recall Roadmap with Morgan. Today I'm going to show you why the fuel itself is the problem, how it hurts injectors and pumps, and what you can do to stop it. Quick tip before we dive in. Diesel can hold around 200 parts per million of water. Cross that line and your injection system starts to suffer. Water and tiny particles do the most damage inside a diesel fuel system. In my bench tests, we ran a high-pressure pump on fuel with a little extra water and fine grit. We saw scarring on the cam and a rough, noisy pump within hours. Filtered fuel with low water? The wear dropped fast. That's why I say the villain is microscopic dirt in the fuel. So what do we mean when we say diesel is dirty? We're talking about contaminants you can't see. Water, tiny particles, and fuel byproducts hide in that clear liquid. They fly past weak filtration and grind on precision parts. If that's dirty fuel, how exactly does it destroy your engine? Stick with me and let's open it up. Have you ever found water in your diesel tank or filter? How did you handle it? Fuel looks clear, but it can hide trouble. It can carry water you can't see and bits you can't feel. Those hidden things tear up an injection system fast. Think of diesel like a soup with tiny grit and a little slime. Here's what lives in there. Water shows up in three forms: dissolved, emulsified, and free. Even when diesel looks clean, it can hold a small amount of dissolved water. When that limit gets passed, droplets form. Those droplets sink and collect in low spots. That water layer becomes a home for microbes. Microbes make sludge, acids, and more debris. You also have natural fuel pieces called asphaltenes. They start as under 2 microns, then clump into chunks the size of a grain of sand. Clumps around 100 to 200 microns will choke a filter in no time. Manufacturers draw a hard line on water. They want water in fuel held below about 200 parts per million to protect injectors. Even 0.02% is too much for many systems. All these bits and drops act like sandpaper. They scratch tight metal surfaces and block tiny holes. Speed tip here: when you keep water under that 200 number, failures drop fast. If fuel carries all that, how does it damage high-pressure parts? Let's walk through the chain next. Dust-sized bits can grind metal. They slip into the micro gaps in injectors and pumps and act like fine sandpaper. Once that wear starts, fuel flow drops and the failure speeds up. Here's the chain. Modern injectors push fuel through several ultrafine holes. A tiny particle or a water droplet hits the seat or the needle. That makes a pit or a score. Now the injector cannot seal right. Spray quality falls. The engine control unit senses low power and commands more fuel to hit the target. That higher demand pushes the pump harder. More pressure, more rubbing, more heat. The wear accelerates. Before long, you see symptoms: higher fuel use, more smoke, rough idle, knocking, maybe a misfire. Keep running it and you'll hit a stall or a no start with a big repair bill. This is why people blame the injector or pump, but the root cause is often upstream dirt and water. Clean fuel prevents the first scratch and that stops the whole cascade. I've torn down injectors that looked fine outside but had scored needles inside. They never had a chance. We know dirty fuel causes wear, but why are new trucks so sensitive to it? The answer is pressure, and a lot of it. Let's look at how modern design raises the stakes. Today's diesels push insane pressure. Tiny bits that older engines might ignore will wreck precision parts in a modern system. Many common rail setups run well over 20,000 psi, and some push to the mid-30,000s. At that force, a small scratch becomes a big leak. The tolerances are tiny, the spray holes are microscopic. A speck that would float in older lines can block or scar a new injector. That is why makers now use very strict filtration. A common setup is a primary filter around 10 to 30 microns and then a secondary filter around 2 to 5 microns. That second stage is the last shield before the injection hardware. Drop that secondary too coarse and more dirt slips by. Keep it fine and you protect the parts that cost the most to replace. I've watched pressure logs on a healthy truck and on a truck with mild injector wear. The worn set needed more command to hit the same rail pressure. That extra work raised pump temperature and noise. It's a slow spiral down. Higher pressure gives great power and clean burn. But it also means the system is much more sensitive to water and grit. If fuel is that touchy, the station that sells it must matter too. What if your gas station's tank is stirring up the worst of it? Filling up can be a gamble. Underground tanks can hold water, rust, and grit. Then a tanker shows up, drops fuel, and stirs that bottom layer. Guess what rushes toward your nozzle first? The mess. Most stations don't polish or clean tanks often. Sediment builds. Water creeps in from venting and condensation. That water sits at the bottom and feeds microbes. When a delivery hits, that layer gets mixed into the stream. Many dispensers only have coarse end screens to keep flow fast. Those screens can be around the thickness of a human hair or coarser. That is nowhere near fine enough to protect modern injectors. Here's the hard truth from the filter world. You can't always control the cleanliness of the diesel delivered to you. The good news is, there are ways to filter fuel at the dispenser or at your own bulk tank. But as a driver on the road, timing helps too. Speed tip for you. If you see a tanker unloading, wait about 15 minutes. That pause lets stirred debris settle back down so you're not pulling the worst of it into your truck. With supply this messy, you need guardrails. Industry knows this and set new fuel standards. Let's see what the top-tier label really means and how it helps you choose a cleaner pump. Big automakers have a plan to clean up diesel. They pushed a program called Top Tier Diesel, launched a few years ago and updated recently. The idea is simple. Raise the bar on detergents and set real limits on contamination in the fuel supply. Some brands will even offer a top-tier plus level that adds extra protection against injector wear and better storage stability. When you see that top-tier badge on a pump, it means the supplier is meeting tougher specs for cleanliness and additives. Is it perfect? No, but it's a better baseline than a mystery blend. You can look up which stations in your area carry top-tier diesel and make that your default stop. Busy stations with that label are your best bet for fresh, cleaner fuel. Quick pause while we're here. If this is helping you protect your truck and your wallet, please subscribe and tap the bell. It's a small click that keeps these safety breakdowns coming every week. Top tier helps, but no fuel is flawless. You still need gear on your truck to catch the leftovers before they reach your injectors. So how should you set up filtration the right way? Let's build a simple, strong defense. Filters are your first defense. But one filter isn't enough for modern diesel. You need stages. Start coarse, then go fine. Think of it like an airlock that knocks back the big stuff first, then scrubs the tiny bits. Here's the setup I like. Tank to water separator, then a primary filter around 10 to 30 microns, then a secondary at 2 to 5 microns, then the engine. The water bowl sits before or between filters, so free water gets trapped early. That protects the paper and keeps flow steady. Many owners add a quality lift pump with integrated filtration. It feeds positive pressure to the system, removes air, and gives you extra dirt and water control. Some dispenser or bulk tank kits can clean fuel to very tight ISO codes in one pass, which helps a lot if you store fuel. Service matters. Replace filters on time. On some rigs, the secondary gets changed every 15 to 25,000 miles, and the primary at oil change intervals. Mount filters where you can see and drain them. Add a clear bowl if your setup allows. This two-step approach catches large debris first and then the fine stuff. Even with that, you may ask, why not push everything to 1 micron? Let's weigh the trade-offs. Finer filters catch more dirt, but too fine can slow flow and plug fast. There's no free lunch here, so let's weigh it out. A 2 micron element is far stricter than a 10 micron. It doesn't just catch a little more. By volume, it allows far less space for particles to pass. Think of it as around 25 times fewer contaminants getting through. That sounds great, but it also means the element loads up quicker. If your fuel has any biodiesel in it, especially a B20 blend, that can plug filters even faster. Cold weather and water content make it worse. Stations avoid superfine filters at the pump for this reason. They use coarse screens, so fuel flows fast and customers aren't stuck waiting forever. On your truck, a secondary at 2 to 5 microns is a smart target. Going below 1 micron is possible, but it takes tight maintenance and spare elements on board. If you set it too fine and skip service, you'll clog and get stranded. So perfect filtration is not practical everywhere. You need enough protection without choking your system. If that's the balance, how do you still keep tabs on contamination? You test for it. Here's how to spot problems early. Don't guess if your fuel is clean. Test it. Small checks can save big money. There are 2 easy lanes. Test the fuel itself and test your used oil. Fuel testing first. A laser particle counter can count how many particles are in a sample above certain sizes. It gives you a cleanliness code that you can track over time. A lab can also report an ISO rating, like 181613, so you know if your fuel is trending dirty or clean. If you store fuel on site, sampling before and after your filters tells you if your setup really works. Now the engine side. Used oil analysis is one of the best early warning tools you can buy. It can show fuel dilution in the oil and spikes in wear metals like iron or copper. Experts estimate that most lubricated failures trace back to contamination. That means dirty fuel or dirty oil is the start of many disasters. A simple oil report can catch the pattern long before a pump seizes or an injector sticks. Put reminders in your phone and send a sample at regular intervals. Measure, trend, adjust. Knowing is half the battle. Now let's turn those facts into daily habits you can use. Ready to protect your engine. It starts at the nozzle and ends with clean, dry fuel at the rail. A few steady habits can save you thousands of dollars. First, buy the cleanest fuel you can. If top-tier diesel is in your area, use it. If not, choose busy national brand stations with fast turnover. Avoid fueling during or right after a tanker drop. Give it 15 minutes to let debris settle. Keep your fuel cap tight and your filler area clean. Second, build your filtration. Run a water separator you can drain. Use a primary around 10 to 30 microns and a secondary around 2 to 5 microns. Mount them where you can see them and service them without a mess. Carry at least 1 spare filter element on long trips. That spare costs less than a tow. Third, verify. Pull used oil samples on a schedule. Watch for fuel percentage and wear metals. If you store fuel, test it and polish it before it goes in the truck. And one more tip from me. Skip the miracle cocktail as your first move. Mechanical filtration and storage hygiene do the heavy lifting. These steps won't make fuel perfect, but they slash your risk. Keep at it, and your injectors and pump will thank you. We just mapped the real problem. Invisible water, particles, and fuel byproducts are the quiet killers in modern diesel systems. At today's extreme pressures, a tiny scratch becomes a big failure. But you're not powerless. Pick cleaner fuel when you can, add proper filtration with a good water trap, service on time, and test your oil. Those moves beat surprise breakdowns. This is Recall Roadmap with Morgan, and my goal is simple. I want you to drive farther, spend less, and avoid preventable failures. If today helped, please subscribe, like, and share this with a friend who runs diesel. Thanks for watching. Now a question for you. Which one step will you try first to protect your diesel? I read the comments and I'm here to help you keep that truck running clean.